Hey gang, John Baccarella here with your Lake St. Clair Fishing Report, brought to you by Sportsmen's Direct. It is Wednesday, August 27th. Water temperature at Belle Isle is down to 70 degrees from 75 when we did the last report last week. So we dropped another 5 degrees. Let me clarify too, that's the water temperature at Belle Isle. So that basically is kind of a combination of all the water coming down through the main shipping channel, following all the way down through the lake, and then it draws some water in from along the shorelines on both the Canadian and the American side, and then it think of it kind of like a funnel, and it mixes, right? So that's what I wanted to talk about here for a second as far as that water temperature goes. Now, if you look at this map and you look up into Lake Huron, there are some buoy temperatures up there that are hovering right around 70 degrees, okay? And so that's the key thing I wanted to talk about, is that right now, that Belle Isle water temperature is going to have a tough time right now getting down below 70, regardless of how cool the air temps and everything are, because this is the time of the year right now that Lake Huron basically helps control that temperature, because that's a big pool of water up there. It takes much longer for that water to cool down, so that's going to affect that temperature. That is until we get a big north wind, a big blow. Those surface temps up there on the lake are just surface temps up there on Lake Huron. It's much deeper. That water down at the bottom is probably closer to 39 or 40 degrees down on the bottom. If we get a big north blow, it's going to mix that water up, and then that temperature up there is going to be a mixture of both that surface temp and that cold water down below. Then that will pull those temps down further at that Belle Isle water temp. Now, with that being said, that doesn't necessarily mean that the whole lake is going to be those temperatures. This is also the time of the year whereas the shallow water on the shorelines is going to be much more dramatically affected by those nighttime lows, which means your shoreline temperatures are going to be lower than that main lake temperature out there by the shipping channel. So you can expect cooler temperatures in and around the shorelines as long as our nighttime lows are cooler, which the forecast is, and we'll get to that in a minute, are showing that they will be. So just wanted to explain that a little bit. So that has kind of an effect overall on, just on the lake temps as I'm reporting them. So we're probably going to be stuck in a little bit of rut with that Belle Isle water temp, but the shoreline temps are going to be lower, and that's important. And we'll get to that in a minute as well. So weather forecast coming up is absolutely gorgeous once we get through tomorrow. Okay, tomorrow's supposed to be kind of a crummy day. I think they got some rain forecasted and a little bit of a north wind, but not a super strong north wind, not strong enough to do what we needed to do, turning over that water up on Lake Huron. But it's early. This is August still, right? So we're at the last week in August, and I would be shocked, really shocked, if we didn't already see our high water temps for the whole year, because and historically we don't see our highest water temps for the year until maybe the first or second week of September, but we basically saw it in the second week of August this year. So this year, kind of think of it like we're kind of a month ahead of schedule on that cool down. So that getting back to the weather, that weather on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday is just going to be absolutely gorgeous. Just mid-70s for highs, light winds, and that's going to carry on up until about Tuesday of next week, according to the weather forecast. And so if you were planning a trip up here and weather was your big deciding factor, looks like we're going to have gorgeous weather for the next 5 days, at least from through the weekend. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday looks beautiful, and then we might have another weather change coming in. But everything is on the cool side. We've had lows here locally like 50 degrees and upper 40s in some places, and it looks like we're going to continue with that. Even tomorrow, the high is only going to be like 66 degrees. So we're going to continue to cool things off out there on the lake. Satellite image. Looking at that satellite image, this is a beautiful satellite image, guys. We don't normally get one this great with clear skies. Great satellite image. Only thing it's really showing is some color over on that Canadian shoreline, and I'm not sure what that is, if that's runoff over there or what. We haven't had really strong winds, so I don't know if maybe it's, the shoreline got beat up over there from north winds or something, but Anyways, the only real color that I'm seeing is over there on that Canadian shoreline. The rest of the lake looks great. Little streaks of color out there by the shipping channel, probably from freighter traffic going through, but everything looks fantastic out there as far as water clarity. For those that really need that clear water to fish, you should have plenty of clear water out there. Still getting plenty of perch reports out there by the shipping channel. A lot of them are down there on that southern end of the lake. And with, kind of, it seems like we're moving into fall early. That shouldn't really surprise anybody, because that's normally where it really takes off first, is down there on that south end, down by the dumps, down by the mouth of the Detroit River, out in front of the Grosse Pointe Yacht Club down there. But we're also getting reports up on the north end. And then I've talked about this before too, like in and around the channel cuts, fishing along the weed lines up there, throwing slip bobbers. It's relatively shallow water. You might be anchored out in 12 to 20 feet of water, but you're fishing and throwing those slip bobbers up basically along the shoreline up there in those channel cuts. So that's another place. But we're also starting to get reports now of a lot of bait fish moving into canals and perch showing up in some of the canals. So, normally I'm waiting to see the weeds dying off out there before we get like a perch transition going into the fall. And normally it's like the second week of October when we see that. But man, with the water temperatures falling back, maybe these fish are moving in earlier. And, I can't argue with people's success when I've got local guys that live on the canals telling me they're catching perch in their backyards. I mean, it is what it is. So, and they're also seeing a lot of minnows in the canals too. And again, the shoreline areas, when we get these cool nights, they're going to cool off much faster. So I guess it's not that shocking. It's just ahead of schedule. As for the smallies, same kind of deal there. Brad Hunt reminds us, that these falling temperatures mean the smallies are moving in closer to shore too. If the bait fish are moving in, the perch are moving in closer, the smallies are going to be right there behind them. So that's going to be up and down the lake. If that's what's happening, that's what's happening. So that should make all you shore anglers and kayak fishermen like me now happy, because you can get out and you don't have to get out that far to get in on some action. So I still think we're a ways away to have the big push along the shoreline, but when the water temperatures fall, these fish are going to move in. Garrett is still up there. Garrett Samsel is still up there catching lots of smallies. He posts online all the time. They're having great success up there on the north end, catching smallies. He also took some great pictures to remind everybody of when we do have these cold fronts moving in, and you got kind of the clash of the titans going on between the air masses, between these northern cold fronts and maybe some of that warm, moist air moving up, you can get some crazy storms. And he got some pictures of some storms that blew up out there kind of all of a sudden the other day. And they also make for some really cool rainbows too. But you can get caught out there. So pay attention to your weather forecasts. Pay attention to that radar that hopefully you got on your phone, so you can see where any of these storms are popping up. You can kind of see when that air gets really unstable. We call them pop-up thunderstorms or popcorn storms that kind of just start bubbling all over the place on the radar. That's when it's really time to pay attention. You generally don't get a lot of wind with those storms. If you do, it's a real localized event, but you can get lightning and stuff with them too, which when you're out there on the water is not something you want to deal with. One of the other things I also wanted to mention too is, if you remember going back to the elite guys talking about all the crayfish and all the reports we've been getting on crayfish, it's also time to pay attention to those crayfish for the walleyes and for the perch too. So, and that's one of the reasons I believe that southern end of the lake gets cranking in the fall, is a lot of the crayfish activity. But walleye will also feed on those crayfish too. So maybe time to change your presentations around and start looking for more of those rocks. And I think your success on the walleyes will probably go up as well. And it wouldn't be the first time I've seen guys go out there and throw like Ned rigs with TRDs and kind of crawfish patterns out there for walleyes when they're on that crayfish bite. And those big perch will definitely eat those crayfish down there too. So it's one of those things to kind of keep in the back of your mind. So these cooler temperatures, generally mean improved fishing for just about everything. I think everything except sheephead. It's probably the only thing this time of the year that we don't hear like guys catching more of, which is kind of weird because I've never really unraveled where those guys go in the wintertime. And I can probably count all the sheephead I've caught through the ice in the wintertime on one hand. So I don't even know. Yeah, I'm sure I haven't even caught 5 sheephead through the ice out here on St. Clair. So I don't know where the heck they go, but everything else definitely tends to come in. Walleye and northerns and muskies. And as the weed cover is diminishing out there, the water temperatures are falling, bait fish kind of come out of those weeds, school up, and move in closer to shore. And you can just ask Chris about that. I mean, he's been taking advantage of it already. He got himself a really nice fat northern pike fishing from shore, and a really respectable shoreline muskie as well too, especially for this time of the year. So it's only going to get better, guys, as we get more into the fall and closer to ice up. That shore fishing is just going to get better and better and better, and those toothy critters are going to get more common out there along the shoreline. Haven't heard of any of the guys catching walleyes from shore at night yet, but with the water temps falling, I don't think that's that far away. So that's going to happen here sooner than later. So get out there, take advantage of these great temperatures, this cooler weather we've got, light winds we've got going forward. I know there's a lot going on out there. For me, I've been canning. I've been doing pickles and tomatoes and working on applesauce today. So there's a lot going on. I know you guys are headed up north for the holiday weekend, maybe closing up cabins or getting your hunting blinds and tree stands and everything, cleared and all that good stuff. But there's a whole lot of great fishing to be had out here on St. Clair. So last week I talked at the end. I asked you guys for your input on the elite event that was here and that forward-facing sonar. I said I was going to do a separate video, but I'm not. I'm just going to do a little short blurb here at the end. I've been watching all of your comments. Most of your comments I've kind of been in agreement with. They've been on the negative side as far as really not liking what you're seeing with the use of the live scope or forward-facing sonar, like what the elite guys were doing. And I tend to agree with that. For me, I personally comes down to kind of the fair chase thing. And I kind of go back to a lot of my roots in hunting, as an archer and, just being brought up in the hunting community and everything. And there's always been that thing about fair chase, right? So as technology has changed in the hunting world, that fair chase has still stayed, a very dominant thing, right? With drones and, thermal imaging scopes and night vision scopes. Here in Michigan, we can't hunt off of an ATV. You can't hunt out of a window of a vehicle. There's a lot of rules that apply in a lot of other sports. And so for me personally, I apply that same kind of methodology to the fishing world as well. And I think a lot of you guys alluded to that in your comments and on the video. And so I agree with you on that. What would I like to see happen? Look, it's going to be the tournament circuits are going to be kind of they're on their own with this. They're going to be like Cracker Barrel, right? They're going to have to make determination on what they're going to do business-wise and what they think their constituents want to see or don't want to see. It's really probably not going to be as much left up to the anglers as you would think. It's going to be more about, what you as the consumer wants to see. So, that's the way it's going to roll. What do I think would be maybe a solution to the situation? Because you're not going to take away the technology, right? Generally. Sure, you could make it illegal or whatnot, but even like I was talking about with the scopes and stuff like that, and you can still fly a drone around, right? You just can't use a drone for hunting applications. You can't use it to push an animal around. You can own thermal imaging or you can own a night vision scope, but it doesn't mean you can actively hunt with it. So, it's not for me, it's not a question of whether you make something legal or not legal. It's about how do you apply it or not allow its application for a specific purpose. So I've given it a lot of thought. And one of the things that comes to mind for me is what bothered me the most about what I saw was kind of chasing of the fish using the combination of a motor and the electronics and then fishing at the same time. So I don't know, maybe some of these guys can come up with policies or rules that take one of those actions away. Like you can still use your electronics for pre-fishing and scoping and looking for structure and everything, right? I mean, that's still a great tool. You can still use it for actual fishing, right? Because that's also a great tool, because learning about how the fish respond. And I'm for the last 30 years, I've been fishing with a flasher, which is basically live scope, vertical live scope with a very limited field of vision, but it's very informative to learn what the fish do and how they react to different presentations. The same thing with the scope looking out from the side. But when I'm ice fishing, I'm not also actively following the fish or chasing the fish or chasing individual fish at a distance. So maybe they can come up with some kind of a rule that says that you just can't be like on the trolling motor and fishing and using the scope at the exact same time. If there's a way to do that, I don't know. But anyways, that's my 2 cents on it. That's my opinion for what it's worth. I know it's a hot button topic. Everybody's talking about it. I've been watching webinars and stuff on it. I can tell you the DNR is talking about it. They're all watching it. And they're doing that in every state right now because there are some risks involved. And I think it's all obvious what some of the risks are. So I'm not going to necessarily get into that right now. But, that's my 2 cents on it. I told you I'd give it to you. So that's it. Great weather ahead. Fishing's just going to get better here going into the fall. Get out, enjoy it. Lake St. Clair, there isn't a better place to be. Hey gang, if you like our content, hit the little subscribe button and the bell icon, and you'll be notified as soon as we put out new stuff.